Would you also agree that Emma Lazarus's words etched on the Statue of Liberty, "Give me your tired, your poor," are also part of the American ethos?
They certainly are. Give me your tired and your poor who can stand on their own 2 feet and who will not become a public charge.
This is Acting Citizenship and Immigration Services Director Ken Cuccinelli suggesting some changes he'd like to see on the Statue of Liberty because they're not even pretending anymore. Emma Lazarus's sonnet on the Statue of Liberty, which reads, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free," have, throughout the history of the United States, symbolized America's openness to immigrants. And whereas so many of this administration's policies have flown in the face of it, it speaks volumes that the White House is at the point where it's now assailing the very words on the Statue of Liberty out in the open for everyone to hear. By the way, this isn't even this administration's first foray into undermining Lazarus's sonnet. Stephen Miller, the far-right architect of Trump's inhumane immigration policy, has tried to undercut it before, most notably during a back and forth with CNN's Jim Acosta in 2017. Acosta suggested that the administration's efforts to push a bill that would have given priority to English-speaking immigrants flew in the face of the sonnet when Miller replied, "I don't want to get off into a whole thing about history here, but the Statue of Liberty is a symbol of liberty and lighting the world. The poem that you're referring to, that was added later, is not actually a part of the original Statue of Liberty." And what's most dangerous is that this talking point is frequently used by white nationalists who claim that Lazarus perverted the true meaning of the Statue of Liberty, which they claim stands for democratic government and Enlightenment ideals. And I know what you're thinking. This administration echoing white nationalist talking points? That couldn't possibly... Yeah, no, that sounds about right. Cuccinelli's admission comes only one day after the White House announced a new public charge rule that would make it more difficult for immigrants who come to the country legally to stay as permanent residents if they've used public benefits like food stamps, Section 8 housing vouchers, or Medicaid. Now, I should note that even undocumented immigrants pay taxes. According to the most recent data from the IRS, undocumented immigrants filed over 4 million tax returns, accounting for more than $13.6 billion in taxes. Officials also estimate that undocumented immigrants contribute billions to Social Security every year through payroll tax deductions. And yet immigrants only have access to a fraction of the benefits that the rest of us have access to. Undocumented immigrants don't have access to Medicare and non-emergency Medicaid. They aren't eligible for federal subsidies or to even outright buy insurance on the ACA exchange. Despite Trump's fear-mongering, they can't vote in elections, although in some municipalities, undocumented immigrants have been granted the right to vote in school board elections. So when Trump made his debunked claim that Hillary Clinton had 3 to 5 million illegal immigrants vote for her in 2016, the most they would have been able to impact is what textbooks the 6th graders are getting in science class. The fact is that this White House talking point that immigrants are somehow a strain on the system is purposefully misleading, because they're often paying in more than they're taking out. And as is the case with this administration, they're actually helping to fund a government that is rounding them up and deporting them. And this is nothing new, especially for this president. Just look at the construction of Trump Tower in 1980, where Donald Trump himself employed a crew of 200 undocumented Polish workers for as little as $4 an hour, which was less than half the union wage if they got paid at all, working 12-hour shifts without gloves, hard hats, or masks. Their treatment resulted in a lawsuit for which Trump ultimately settled for nearly $1.4 million. So I guess he doesn't have a problem with immigrants when he's exploiting them for his own personal gain. But the worst part is that this administration is, per usual, demonizing immigrants to distract from those who are truly the problem. If we're worried about public charge, look at corporations and billionaires, both of whom have successfully lobbied the Trump administration to pay even less, despite exploding income inequality, a record high deficit, and anemic corporate revenue. Republicans are so hell-bent on blaming undocumented immigrants for the crime of wanting to see a doctor and go to work and provide what semblance of a living they can for their families, while giving a pass to CEOs who make, on average, 361 times what the regular American makes. The top 1% in this country is robbing the rest of us blind, but the GOP knows that as long as you can focus your anger on the brown guy who can't defend himself, that the rich can continue to get away with murder. If we're so worried about public charge, why don't we focus our attention on states like Mississippi or Louisiana, both of which receive 43% of their budget from the federal government, the highest in the nation? You know, if those states weren't ruby red, I might even venture to say that the Trump administration would claim that they can't stand on their own 2 feet and are very much a public charge. But regardless of the White House's tenuous arguments, the fact is that the United States is a nation of immigrants. That is who we are. Lazarus's sonnet isn't a suggestion, it's our foundation. And just like the moments in our past where we've strayed from that are always the exception and not the rule.